Scout.com Sam Hellman here with national recruiting analyst Brian Dunn. We're talking Maryland Terrapins today, and we're looking at that recruiting class. Recruiting is always about relationships, Brian, and this year there's some questions about the coaching stability and those relationships being built with Maryland. How do you see what's going on with Maryland right now playing into the recruiting class?
Well, I think right now they're doing well with a couple of the key targets like Tabor and Jalen Tabor and Damian Prince, but it's key. The way they end the season is going to be big for them because, look, they got off to a big start. They cracked a poll. I don't think they cracked all the major ones, but they cracked into a poll. And what do? They respond 63-0 with a loss at Florida State. And after that, you know yourself. You talked to Damian Prince, and he said, "Hey, I want to see a little bit more of them, more competitiveness." They wind up, they lose to Clemson. They barely squeaked by UVA, which is a bad team. They're 5-3. You got to think they'll make it to a bowl game. It's Randy Edsall's third year. Maryland's cash dropped, so getting rid of the coach at this point, I don't see that being an option just because it's so early and they're, let some of that Big Ten money kick in, and also give him a little more opportunity to kind of rebuild things after Ralph Friesen there. But I think for Maryland, when you're looking at recruiting on a whole, and you just lost a recruit to Penn State, Jonathan Thomas, a kid out of Massachusetts, who has a lot of relatives in the Virginia area right near campus, I think there's a little bit of a concern right there for Maryland where they are, and they need to finish strong.
Well, Randy Edsall has brought in some local big names already in his first couple years with Maryland, and you know what, going to the Big Ten, there's obviously momentum there, but the two big names that all Maryland fans want to know about, Jalen Tabor, Damian Prince. What do you got, Brian?
Well, Jalen, look, the only thing I know about Jalen Tabor from Friendship Collegiate, the cornerback, is Florida and Maryland are the two constants. Alabama, yeah, they kind of, sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're not. They're always hanging around. And then Arizona's a team as of late, not really Vandy. So you look and you say, okay, where are the two constants? Maryland and Florida State. And Florida. And so you're looking at he always grew up a Florida fan, but he spent a lot of time on the Maryland campus. He has a lot of friends that go to Maryland. I think it's going to be one of those battles. If Maryland implodes, I think he winds up at Florida. If Maryland, is competitive the last couple of games, goes to a decent bowl, and shows some progress, I think he can. I think Maryland then stands a good chance. And then when you look at Damian Prince, the offensive tackle out of Bishop McNamara, he's been around the Maryland program a lot. There's a feeling down there that they're going to get him, that they have a really good chance. It could, though, depend how much does Florida State want him? How much does Ohio State want him? How do they finish the season? I'm sure Maryland can now sell him on the fact that their left tackle just left the program. They'll do the same thing with Brock Rubel from DeMatha, who they're recruiting. But you look at, Tabor and Prince are kind of like the cornerstones. It's kind of like when they got Wes Brown and Stephon Diggs a couple years ago. Tabor's going to enroll early as of now. So the opportunity to really make a bigger splash can come in the next few months.
Well, you mentioned Tabor enrolling early. Damian Prince is almost the opposite. He's deciding late. The plan with Prince right now, from talking to him, is to decide February 14th after signing day. Does having that extra time, how does that impact what Maryland wants to do in trying to get him to take an official visit and trying to sell its program? Almost seems like during the whole winter.
Yeah, I don't see how it helps or hurt. I just think it's an annoyance to programs. Hey, look, Damian's got to do what he's got to do, and I respect that, and he's honoring his grandmother with it. That's great. I respect that because he'll always remember it. It just means coaches are going to recruit him harder for another week and a half or whatever it is, and it just means coaches are going to, instead of biting their nails all the way to the bone, it's going to go like halfway up to the knuckle now because they're just going to be, it's going to be a big battle, you would think.
Maryland's hard at work within its state and hard at work locally to try and finish the class strong. There's guys still on the table like Melvin Kine, some other names. What do you see locally, behind the two main names?
Well, I see, Melvin Kine from the Gilman School, who you talked about, Brock Rubel, who I mentioned earlier from DeMatha, and Demetrius Johnson from Annapolis Christian. We'll go real quick with them. Kine just put Maryland in his top 5, had an official visit, it went well. I think whatever school pushes the hardest on Kine will have a really good chance of landing him. His recruitment's kind of been all over the board a little bit, but the constants have been Maryland, Virginia. Penn State, if they push hard, I could see him winding up at Penn State because they do a great job in the Maryland area with kids. Brock Rubel, look, he's going to visit Maryland officially. He's also looking at NC State, Florida State, Ohio State. Again, with a guy like Brock, Does Ohio State have room for him? Right now, it doesn't look like they do. Does Florida State want him? If they get Damian Prince, or if they think they're getting Damian Prince, will they take Brock Verubel? It's stuff like that. Demetrius Johnson, I mean, it's Maryland, it's Marshall, it's Old Dominion, it's Syracuse. Right now, it sounds like Syracuse may be a backup plan. If Maryland wanted him, I mean, really pushed for him, they could get him probably at any minute. So I think that's more to see how the class works itself out.
Well, exciting times in Terrapin country for sure. National recruiting analyst Brian Doan, we're talking Maryland.